I hope that the audio and video is good and clear for everyone so that we can have a good and accessible session where we can feel that we are truly here together at this moment. So firstly, I wanted to talk a little bit about the life of a monk. Being a monk and being an American monk coming from a Western culture, it's a very unusual thing. It's very strange. And from my first time coming to Thailand and living in the country and becoming a monk, my language, my psychology, my way of existing in the environment has changed so much, so fundamentally, you know. And the kind of cultural and social circles that I exist in and also feel that are very meaningful and useful have completely changed in so many ways. I don't know how that's happening. So one of the things that I want to talk about is a monk and their finances, right? Which basically relates to the monk's basic needs, right? How does a monk meet their basic needs? Because I, as a monk, I don't work, I don't sell things, I don't have stocks, I don't have investments. You know, I'm not in the world of business. So how am I taking care of myself, and how should a monk take care of themselves? You know, how does this work? So fundamentally, the monk is able to live by the support of the community, by the support of the society. And depending on what that monk is doing, what style of monk or what kind of monk they may require less support or more support, or, you know, considering what they're doing to be able to do that. So I just left a forest temple in the south of Thailand, which is a very famous temple called Suon Mok, the temple of Buddha Dasa. And this is a very forest temple. And in staying there, I mean, a monk doesn't need any money. A monk barely needs electricity. They barely need running water. Just the very simple basic necessities is all that that monk requires, you know, to sustain their life and live in the forest and primarily focus on meditation or whatever they're focusing on. And so as a monk in that situation, in the Buddhist country, in the Buddhist societal context, one can wake up early in the morning, as I have done many times, with my robe and my bowl. You can see this is my begging bowl. This is one of the essential materials for a monk. This is one of the essential materials for me teaching and doing the online work that I do, the missionary work. So going out into the village, you can receive water, food for the day, and then when your robe falls apart or when something comes up, you will have a natural relationship with the people in that area, and then you can talk to them. You know, my roof doesn't work, something like that. So this principle of community and generosity is really at the core of the monastic life. And from what I understand, from what I heard, the Buddha talked about dana, or generosity or giving, being like this core way to receive the Dhamma, to get instructions from a monk. Because first of all, if the monk isn't being fed, they're going to die. So you can't get Dhamma from a dead person, right? You can't get advice from a dead person. But secondly, monks are not, you know, like myself as a monk, even though I work with a lot of people online, older people, younger people, men, women, people who are in the area where I am, or people who are around the world, right? I'm not maintaining interpersonal relationships. It's very rare that I'll have a kind of what would appear to be an interpersonal relationship with someone, and that would only be if they are, like, I consider them to be very developed on the path. So I consider them a kalyanamita, a spiritual friend, someone who's very experienced on the path. Other than that, even though there are interactions, even though there is friendliness, even though there is a contact or experiences, I'm not in any way involved in maintaining interpersonal relationships. So this way of being, this way of monastic life gives us an opportunity to be in touch with our teacher or to be in touch with the monk, and then to follow them and support them so that you can be supported, right? Not to kind of find a way to get the monk to follow you. Because the monk is a renunciate, it's a leaver, right? It's a home leaver, it's a let-goer. An expert in knowing how to leave, in being able to leave, right? To be able to let go, to be able to give up. And that's what these robes and this life as a monk represents. Now, I am, and my teacher as well, we are not a forest tradition in that sense. We're not living in the forest and, kind of taking care of ourselves and just focusing on meditation or just focusing on our personal needs. We're following a methodology, Tabarwa, of doing good deeds with mindfulness and detachment for all. Doing good deeds with mindfulness and detachment for all, limitlessly. So our practice, our way of meditation is doing all kinds of good deeds, doing all kinds of actions of generosity, meditating through that, right? And emphasizing this doing good deeds with mindfulness, or doing good deeds meditation with detachment, or doing as not someone, doing in not somewhere, doing not in relation to some particular thing or some particular story. So this is a big picture that we're working with. And my work to go to different monasteries, to travel and to teach and to kind of keep up with my teacher, who's one of the most well-known meditation masters in Myanmar, it takes a lot of resources, it takes a lot of support to do that. So in the past, I've been more open to accept that people offer me, monetary donations. And while this may be a taboo in certain circles of Buddhism, in general, it could be a big deal, but in general, it's not that big a deal. It's quite normal that people donate money to monks. I would be, out of all the temples in America that are Buddhist temples, I would say that maybe 1% of them really do not have a policy that monks do not receive money, something like that. But considering the kind of the impact that I'm having in the public space and how our community has formed and developed, I want to move away from people donating to me directly to support my work and to support my practice and my travel and my training and my life as a monk, and move more towards a Capia system, right? A Capia system. And we put this announcement onto the Discord server. So what is a Capia system? What is a Capia? So you may bring up in your mind this idea or this concept, right? Like you are living at a temple, or you are living at a monastery, you are living at a meditation center. And there is a monk that is a Dhamma teacher there. They are giving you the gift of the Dhamma, right? They are teaching you to detach, to live according to the truth, to put down what you pick up moment by moment, in terms of all these things that you grasp onto in your mind, right? So you may realize, oh, to support that person and to take care of that person and to make arrangements for that person really, really makes sense, because there's no higher gift, there's no higher support than I can receive than the support of the Dhamma. And that actually it's very rare, it's very uncommon to be supported in that way, to have a Dhamma teacher, to have someone who can guide you and instruct you. So at the temple, it's very normal that you will have people who will wash the robe for the monk, or prepare the food for the monk, or help the monk to clean their room even, right? All these kind of basic things that they will help the monk to do so that they can focus primarily on the Dhamma, right? And so a Capia is kind of like that, because even though the monks may develop a relationship with the local community, right? Like I have a relationship with my online community, it's not really appropriate for me to hold out the begging bowl and say, hey, I need your support or something like that. because we already have a community here that that can take that role, can take that responsibility from the monk. You see? And so the point here is that I don't want to be involved in money in that way. And I also don't want people to get the wrong idea of what I'm doing and what our community is doing, that this is somehow related to Bhante getting money or Bhante receiving money. Because I am following my teacher, and because I am doing a lot of things around the world and teaching and traveling, these kinds of things, yes, a monk requires support. So moving into this Capia system, it's kind of an assistant or a helper or a responsible person that has a monk that they believe in, has a monk that they trust, and that they're getting the Dhamma support from, and they basically they express in this way. This is kind of the connection point. Dear Bhante, dear Venerable, if there is anything that you need, please let me know, and I will help you. I will try to help you take care of that. Right? So that commitment is kind of this open line, right? And so now the monk can go to that person and say, rather than just random people who they happen to know about, or the general public, and say to that person, yeah, I could use this or I could use that. I could use help with this or with that. And then it's completely up to that lay person or that group of lay people, right? That Capia group that we're developing here, to make the decision to support or not. So then the monetary, the financial is not really in control of the monk, even though, you know, that group is explicitly there to support that monk, but it's not directly under the control of the monk. So that's the system that, you know, I want us to be able to develop in our online space, you know, through our community. And I think it's beneficial. And like I requested in the Discord, but also to anyone here, please send me a direct message in whatever social platform you can, on email or Discord or what have you, and I'll add you into that Capia group in our server. And then when something comes up, when I have a flight, or when maybe there's an emergency, you know, like I'm young and healthy now, but I won't always be young and healthy for sure, or I'll be dead. Right? So when something comes up, I will bring it to that group, and then they can determine how to go about helping me with that and supporting me in that, right? And then the other side is that that group can also be responsible for doing some fundraising, right? For creating a collection of resources, whereas some people may not be comfortable to be a Capia. Some people may not be comfortable to have that like direct relationship and responsibility, and it is a lot of responsibility, right? That's why I haven't been able to develop this system or have one, a Capia responsible person up until now, because it's a lot of responsibility to take care of someone else's life and to be in that position. So that Capia group can also kind of do fundraising for our community and for supporting Bhante and whatever other projects we may have in the future. For example, we have the upcoming 3-month meditation retreat in Bodh Gaya, India. And so some people may really want to go to that, but maybe they have difficulty to get a flight ticket, or maybe they have you know, they need some simple basic support so that they'll be able to go out there. And so in that case, that's also our community needs, you know, and I'll do my best to determine if that makes sense, and then bring that to our Capia group. And these are a lot of the, you know, the practical aspects of monk life and monastic life. And it's one of the joys to be involved in a sangha that has a dependent, right? A monk is like a dependent person that has a vow for independence. A dependent person that has a vow for independence, to do freely, you know, to come and go freely. Any questions about this in particular? And sometimes we shy away from the practical side of our spiritual journey because we develop these high ideas about no self or impermanence or, our attainments or these complicated ideas about what spirituality means to us, but then we lose the practical path. So my very strong encouraging point is that we don't just want to be on the sideline of our spiritual life. We want to incorporate our spiritual life into our practical life as much as possible. That doesn't mean we need to become a monk. It doesn't mean we need to do anything in particular, but to see about that, right? Incorporating the practical with the spiritual so that they may go together. And this point is really important because some people are thinking that, okay, you're like kind of like building up to some spiritual plateau. You're building up to some point where you're not going to have any problems anymore, or you're basically going to be able to shirk all responsibility. And this is a broken view. This is a really, really wrong view. The more we get in line with this path, the more we take on the Dhamma and take refuge in the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha, the more responsibility we have. And then the joy, the happiness, the peacefulness, the freedom, as they say in Thailand, the sabai sabai, just relax, just open, just free. That comes up naturally, but we're no longer chasing those kind of things. We're no longer chasing those kind of pleasurable, pleasant states, things like that. We're taking responsibility for the moment-to-moment actions of body, speech, and mind. And it's a joy to be in that position in the community. There's no plateau, there's no platform that you're going to get to sit on. If there is, it's just going to rise up from nothingness and you'll be, wow, look at that. You'll just be there, But that's also not reliable. That's just a temporary. That's just coming and going like anything else. So the truth, time for me to tell the truth, there is suffering. There is. There is unsatisfactoriness. Maybe we breathe that in for a moment. There is suffering. Now, that there's enough suffering now, that there's enough unsatisfactoriness now to not be looking into the past or looking to the future, because there's enough right here. And the whole body, the whole mind, the whole system, all the hearing, seeing, smelling, tasting, touching, body-mind phenomena, there is suffering, there's unsatisfactoriness. And so this point of there is suffering is a very, very fundamental point, especially as we are beginners. Because as a beginner, I mean, you're going to hell all the time. You're going to hell very often as a beginner, or you're going into lower realms where your mind is constricted, your body is tense, there's pain in the body, there's pain in the mind, there's non-practical, complicated thinking stacked on top of each other. And then the moment that there's an access point for the Dhamma, what happens? We run away because we start to be aware of the dukkha. We start to be aware of the unsatisfactoriness. We stop and start to be aware of that this is not just completely fine. It doesn't feel that way. It actually feels difficult to look at, to sit with, to breathe with. Now, you don't go around chasing difficulty, but you become aware of just stopping long enough to be aware of this phenomena, of this nama rupa, this mental phenomena, this physical phenomena that you are encountering inside of yourself, in your environment. That all of these sounds, all of these sights, all of these experiences that we have are unsatisfactory, unreliable. In the same way that the best water in the world, the cleanest water in the world, the sweetest water in the world is unsatisfactory. It cannot satisfy you because you can drink the whole ocean of this, right behind me, and you will still be thirsty the next day. So it's not satisfying. Even water, how much more so the sights, the sounds, the feelings in the body, the sensations, the mental phenomena, the thoughts that you have. It is not satisfactory. It is not reliable. It is not going to give freedom. Now why? Why is there suffering? This is the big why, right? Why, Bhante? Why? What about this? What about that? Why about this? Why about that? These whys are never ending, right? We should find who invented why, and we should ask them, who are you to make something up like this? The Buddha give us an answer. The why is grasping. The why is clinging. Okay? You feel this, it feels good. You feel this, it feels bad. You're grasping onto something else, somewhere else, right? So this constant grasping, this constant chasing, this constant looking for the better situation, or looking at the worst in this situation, or trying to figure out, always grasping, 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 grasping. Now, you need to understand, if you did not do that, if you stopped doing that, you would become an arahant. You would become a completely enlightened being, where there was no conditions at all. Just freedom, indescribable, can't even talk about it. No conditions, no metrics, you can't even talk about this state of arahantship. Unspeakable. So you have to learn how to develop a relationship with your grasping, with your clinging, with that which is causing all of this suffering, causing all of this misery. To develop a wholesome relationship with your grasping, you need to grasp onto the right thing and stop grasping onto the wrong thing. And you need to understand at a very deep level, at a practical level, that this grasping is not going to bring about freedom. You need to remember that this Uber Eats order is not going to give you freedom. That this place over there or that place over there is not going to give you freedom, because it doesn't actually exist until it's there. And even when it's there, it's impermanent. If your Uber Eats wasn't impermanent, then you'd be in a really difficult situation. What are you going to do with it? You eat it, it becomes shit, you flush it down the toilet, etc. So we do have to eat, we do have to drink water if we live our lives, right? We need to take a rest, we need to be careful, we need to take care, we need to help each other. We need to be serious, like it's a high-paying job. Otherwise, you won't have success. You need to approach it in the same way, like you're making a lot of money by going into this job. Otherwise, you won't be very serious about it. It will be a hobby, or it will be, like an entertainment. But you need to remember these teachings all the time. Right? Firstly, there is dukkha, there is unsatisfactoriness. It is like that. All of these phenomena are like that, unsatisfactory, temporary, and they don't exist separate from each other. There's just an appearance and a passing away of it. And then, why is it so impermanent? Why is it so unsatisfactory? Right? Why are there all these separate self entities, all of these separate things that are just buzzing around and driving us mad all the time? It's because we do not have a wise relationship with our grasping, with our addiction, with our clinging, with our chasing. So firstly, we need to realize that grasping is not going to give you freedom. It doesn't matter if it's made of gold or diamonds or sapphires or whatever. You get a hold of it, you're not going to be free. And then you can kind of come back to yourself and stop this chasing around and look at this experience that you're having right now. The physical experience, the mental experience that's there. And that looking at it is just aware. You don't need to put any effort into looking at it to be aware. Aware is just like this. You're awake, you're aware. And you notice the the subtlety and the directness of the experience, the experiencing that's taking place. And then you realize, you recognize that, oh, grabbing onto that, trying to get more of that, or trying to avoid that is not going to give me freedom. You can't control it at that level, but you can remind yourself, you can, oh yeah, I remember that. Like, even though I feel some kind of pain, right? Even though I feel some kind of unpleasantness or a neutral feeling, there's a feeling there in my ankle kind of thing, right? Because I'm sitting half lotus. So what? Whether I move it or I don't move it or what have you, I move towards it or I move away from it, that is not going to give freedom. That is just because of this and that, dependent origination. So back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Sensation after sensation, cause and effect. More important than, oh, it's like this or it's like that. This is because of that. You see? And when we stop and we watch the experience, we see that one after another, sound, their sound, and then like if the heat of this area increased by 20 degrees or something like that immediately, my entire self-experience is going to change. And is that because I, because I am have an ego and identity and it changes according to these particular things? No, it's just this because of that. The temperature in the environment changes, the temperature in the body changes, then I have an aversion, or I like it, or I don't like it, or it's neutral, etc. And in the same way that you can hear, right, you can be told, I can hear, I can be told that there is a reality about grasping, right? So that moment by moment grasping onto trying to get what is pleasurable and trying to avoid what is painful, that's not going to work, that's not going to give me freedom. And when I look into the background of my experience, I say, oh yeah, that's true. Doesn't matter how much milk tea I drink, I'm not free. You see? Doesn't matter how nice my robe is or whatever, I'm not free. I'm still going through these cycles. So even though we can intellectually grasp that, we can't control the grasping at that level. So where is this point? Not understanding is okay. You need to be more comfortable and more authoritative, more brave about not understanding. Because you do not understand how to be free. Or you do not understand how to help other people be free, or to fix this situation or that situation, or save the world, etc., etc., etc. So we can dwell on that not understanding and then trying to understand and developing more tension and confusion in ourselves, or we can say, hey, it's okay that I don't understand. And maybe it's more important for me to focus on and to try and be a good person, which is going to be done imperfectly. Don't you doubt that. It's definitely going to be done imperfectly. I'm imperfect, but I is already not, so I'm kind of going in the right direction. But it's okay to not understand and to notice and to breathe, to follow your breath, to practice meditation, to practice generosity, to invest in the community of the Sangha. Let's say the fourfold Sangha, lay men, lay women. Let's make it a fivefold Sangha, lay, non-binary, or etc. Okay? And then bhikshus and bhikshunis. Let's get involved. Let's think about it. Let's invest in it with our time and our energy and our skills. Let's show up and root out idealism. Okay? Because the idealism is another big problem. We think, oh, someone's idealistic, that's really romantic, that's really nice, but actually it's not. They go around judging and causing problems. oh, this doesn't meet my idealistic idea of what a monk is supposed to be, or what a Buddhist temple is supposed to be, or what a meditation center is supposed to be. Who cares? Get out of here and never come back, please. Right? That's also okay. What do we need to have every person who wants to complain and make judgments, live in the top of our head? No. Some people were asking me recently, what about this? What about that? I said, oh, have you understood the principle of Nunya? Has anyone here understood the principle of Nunya? Nunya business. The principle of Nunya is Nunya business. Go home, take a break, take a walk. Take a break from yourself. Take a break from myself. Instead of just perpetuating it all the time. There is nibbana, there is freedom. Freedom is possible. This is the Buddhist principle that is really important to emphasize and understand, okay? This is the Buddhist principle that's very important to notice and understand. We're not talking about feeling better. We're talking about becoming free. Buddhism is not talking about feeling better. Now, that's what's going to happen when you practice the Buddha path sincerely and in a good way, okay? But that's not what the Buddhism is about, for you to feel better. It's about freedom, okay? And the path to freedom is the Eightfold Path, all right? And I like to say it like this, because the Eightfold Path is very, very specific, so it's more like a system. But I think this is the general intent, more digestible intent. Dana, generosity. Okay? How do you go from suffering to recognition of grasping to the ending of grasping to freedom? How do you go through that and about that? Okay? I will tell you. Dana. Develop a real relationship with generosity in your life. Develop a real relationship with actions of generosity in your life, point blank, period. It is way, way more important that you develop and do actions of generosity, doing good deeds, doing actions to help and to offer and to share for people, right? Than it is for you to try to make money for yourself. A lot of people have mental health issues. A lot of people have major mental health issues because they don't have a relationship with generosity in their life. You see? They're constricted around themselves. They're constricted around this self, this idea, this confusion, this contraction, okay? All the time. And they don't know how to give. And then their vision is just about them all the time. And if you're stuck in the vision of yourself all the time, well, you're bound to be stressed. You're bound to be anxious. You're bound to be confused. You're bound to be wound up by greed all the time. This life isn't just about you. It's not just about yourself. And this is why people go mad, right? This is why people develop these sustained, serious mental health issues or develop this constant lifestyle of intoxicating themselves. Because they've got a wrong idea that life is fundamentally about them, about themselves. It's not, right? At least it's about everyone. At least it's about the community, right? It's about helping people. So you develop a relationship with generosity, whether that's volunteering or donating or sharing your possessions, sharing your skills, sharing your time. You go out there and you support and you get involved. Now, heck of a good idea to do those things concerned with the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha. Okay, especially the Arya Sangha. All right, so people or groups or traditions that are kind of making a little bit of progress on their path to enlightenment. Okay? That's a special way to go about it. right? So these high masters, these high teachers, we want to get involved with them. We want to do good deeds concerned with them. We want to bolster their organizations. We want to think about all these kind of special ways in which we can get involved and support. And from that dana, from that generosity, and I know it's a lot to deal with, we move into sila, or we move into following 5 precepts. This is the way to live your life. Don't kill, respect all life. Don't steal, respect the properties of others. Don't lie. Don't speak harshly. Use loving, compassionate speech, and watch out for the chit chat. I can't even imagine sitting and chit chatting with people. You know what I mean? So just watch out for it. I know you can't probably completely restrict that or control that, but try to watch out for it. Chit chat is just wasted energy and speech most of the time, unless you're doing some kind of compassionate listening with someone, trying to help them out of their views, which is very commendable and good to do. Be very careful with your sexuality. Be very, very careful with your sexual energy. Okay? It doesn't mean you need to be celibate. It doesn't mean you need to be a monk, but it means you need to be very careful and wholesome and skillful and bring a sense of reverence to sexual energy. And of course, if you can, do some fasting. Step back. Calm down about that, because you can really tangle yourself up and tangle other people's up in that. Number 5, don't take intoxicants. Don't drink alcohol. Don't smoke weed. Don't do all this stuff. Restrict it, reduce it, let it go. A lot of times people are drinking alcohol and smoking weed to replace the lack of meaningfulness in their life. It's not a good way to go about it. You come to India in July or what have you, you'll get some meaningfulness in your life, all right? We'll have more information about that trip in the coming days. No, don't kill anything. You set up boundaries, you set up barriers of protection rather than, blaming. Animals are blaming beings that come in and do what is their nature to do. Why are you fighting against flies or fighting against mosquitoes? You should try to prevent their rebirth. You should try to take care of the environment around you. Okay, any questions? Okay, so Chris says, how would you advise someone who has reached the opposite shore? How should one proceed? Be a little bit more clear about what you're saying. Are you saying like someone on YouTube saying, what would you advise for them if they think they're enlightened to do, if they think they're enlightened? Try to be more generous in your sharing about your experience and what you're talking about. It's very difficult to answer questions precisely when you don't share about your experience. How do you know that you're really making progress or progress towards enlightenment? It's very simple. You will have more wholesome states of mind. You will have more access to a general sense of peace. You will have less reactivity in negative stimuli. And you will also say, You would also say that you tend to fall into these negative states for shorter periods of time if you're really making progress on the path. And you'll also find that the people who are not like that, people who may be quite negative or going through a lot of difficulty in themselves that they're not trying to work on, they will not really want to be around you, and you won't really want to be around them. And you'll see that very clearly. You'll experience that quite clearly. Okay, so someone who has attained stream entry but is not perfect yet, someone who has seen the eye, Chris Black, come to India, come to Tabarwa, come to with the meditation master, you know. That's what I recommend. It's really the best, the right way to go. If we're serious about enlightenment, come be with the people who are serious about enlightenment. And even if you're not, well, to test, right? One of the big things that's going to help us, that's helped me in my life, is you go out and you test. They have a saying in the Plum Village tradition, everybody's enlightened until they get a roommate. Okay? Everybody's enlightened until they get a roommate. Everybody's enlightened until they're on a bus in the mountains of Myanmar for 12 hours with incredible heat and no shower and people making noise around you. Let's see if you're enlightened then. Okay? And if you really have got that idea, right, that you've got stream entry or something like that, I've got something for you right here. You don't want to miss out on this. Okay? I'll give you my best. All right? And we'll see if you don't have a self-view, if you cannot sustain a self-view. We'll test it. We'll try it. And that's also something that only really like the meditation masters and the high monks and the Ariya Sangha can help you with. And there's not much Ariya Sangha in the US or in these Western communities. There's not much access. You know, and if there is access, it's very limited, it's very conditional, it's very much about money. You know, you've got to pay $700 to go to some 1-week retreat or something like that. And that's not right. That's not really right. It's not correct. And then when you look at those organizations, they're mainly just working for themselves. Now, when it's a smaller thing, it's like if you go across a monk and they're eating out of their bowl and you say, look at that monk just eating for himself. Well, that doesn't make any sense. But when that monk has like hundreds of thousands of dollars or something like that, or these big, vast temples and networks of, you know, major financial donors, well, that's when you say, what's this organization doing? And it's not an attack on them to say that. You go and look into it. See how you can join into the fold. See how you can understand what they're doing. Because Buddhism is all about generosity. It's not building these temples, just these big temples for the monks, for their personal comfort. Hey, I want my teacher to be comfortable and have the tools that he needs to do his work. But you don't need so much for that. You know, you don't need these massive temples. If the opportunity is there, we can do that, but not just that. If it's just that, you know, I question it. And yeah, if you want to contact me on Facebook, my name is Bhante Varapanyo, the same as my YouTube. So you can contact me, send me a message, what have you. You can call me. Any other questions? Because stream entry and like these, so there these 4 stages of enlightenment in Theravada Buddhism is primarily about abandoning your life. Unless you can abandon your life, if you can't even entertain the notion of abandoning your life, then you're not a stream enterer. Okay, you're not on the 1st stage. But I'll say what these 4 stages of enlightenment are, okay? A lot of people are very interested in this. I only recently learned more about it. So the first is a sotapanna, or a stream enterer. And a stream enterer has 3 faculties, okay? One is that they do not believe in a self. They cannot sustain the view of a self. They cannot sustain the view that they are someone separate from everything. It's not possible for a Sotapanna to sustain that point of view. Okay? Number two, they do not have an attachment to rites and rituals. So they do not have a belief in that if you do this, this, and this, then you will get this particular thing that will happen, right? Because if there's not a self, then how can this, this, and this lead to that happening for someone? We're going in the direction of building a better community in the West, Joseph Miller, and we're having a lot of success, honestly. I mean, we're really, even though we're in an online space, I mean, we're right up there with Empty Cloud and Clear Mountain, which is, you don't need to compare, but it's definitely like that. So we're going in that direction. So no self-view, no attachment to rites and rituals, and I like to say for Westerners, this would be like a rejection of rites and rituals. So rejection is a form of attachment. So if you go to a Buddhist temple and you say like, those monks, they're doing those rites and rituals, what fools they are, that's probably not detachment from rites and rituals, that's probably rejection of rites and rituals, which is attachment, another form of attachment. Craving and aversion are both grasping. And then number three, they have full faith in the Buddha Dhamma. They have full faith in the Buddhist path, unshakable faith. Okay? So those are the three qualities. And then for when you get stream entry, it's much less likely for like sexuality, sensuality to come up. The sensual, like getting stuck in sensual things, also like becoming very greedy, becoming very angry, becoming very delusional, it's very difficult for that to happen. It can still happen, but it's very difficult. And even though it does happen, it won't happen to an extreme degree. So for example, a Sotapanna may feel greed, but that won't bring them to steal. Or a Sotapanna may have a non-practical, complicated thought come up, but that won't lead them into like a self-fixated state of believing in that non-practical, complicated thought long-term. Or if that did happen, it would be very, very, very difficult for that to happen. So from Sotapanna, you go into Sakyagami. So a Sakyagami is like a Sotapanna, only the possibility for them to become angry, the possibility for them to become like stuck in sensuality or sexuality, the possibility for them to have evil thinking or negative thinking is even more reduced, even more fundamentally reduced. So for a Sotapanna, where it's somewhat possible for them to get triggered or angry or what have you, for a Sakyagami, that's much less possible. It's still possible, but it's much less possible. Now, the big jump is to an Anagami. So an Anagami does not have attachment to sensuality. They don't have attachment to lust. They don't have attachment to greed or anger or non-practical, complicated thinking. They dwell in jhana all the time. So they dwell in samasamadhi. They dwell in deep meditation all the time, and that's what sustains them. They're not interested in food. They're not interested in sensuality, sexuality. They dwell in samasamadhi. They dwell in the sublime states of mind, right? And then from that, from a anagami to an arahant. And an arahant is like a non-conditional state. You can't say anything about it. It's like the universe realizing that it's nothing, recognizing itself, but it's nothing like that at all. No conditions. For arahant, there are no conditions. There's no conditionality. There's no affiliation with conditionality in the mind of an arahant. But you can't get to those states, you can't get to those experiences by chasing after them. You have to get them by walking on the path, right? It's like thinking that you can get to a location because you have the location on Google Maps. That's not going to do anything for you. You've got to walk there, you've got to breathe there, you've got you've got to take those steps. So it's more important that you learn how to walk before you learn how to use a GPS. If you don't know how to walk, the GPS isn't going to do you any good. And you'll just be wasting your time, and it'll just become an ego trick. And then a lot of these people that, I hope the audio is still okay, the wind's coming through. A lot of these people that hyperfixate on like stream entry and the stages of enlightenment and all that early on, before they really have much of a practice, they get into these false enlightenments. And that's okay, you know, we don't need to blame anyone, we don't need to point out anyone's negative qualities. I'm sure everybody is suffering. Don't you worry about that, right? It's like we see someone negative and then we say, oh my gosh, they're so nasty. I want them to suffer. Don't worry, they're suffering, that's for sure. Okay, so you don't have to bother with it. They've got plenty of suffering. So it's not that it's like something we need to protest about, but yeah, they get stuck in these false enlightenments, right? And the way that you can root out false enlightenments is that you go and you test, right? So you can go to an intensive meditation retreat, and there are all kinds of different intensive meditation retreats. It's not just that you go and pay $700 to some center and then you go stay there for 7 days and close your eyes and face the wall. That's not the only kind of meditation retreat. The Buddha didn't teach that. You know, the forest temple that I came from, there's very few monks, there's not much of a community, there's not a Western community there, even though Buddha Dasa taught a lot for Westerners and very popular there. And they just do these meditation retreats, you know, like twice a month, and apparently a lot of people come to these retreats, and that's great, but the Buddha didn't say anything about that. The Buddha didn't tell us to do that, for monks to do that. So that's not to put down what they're doing, but it's to say there are so many different avenues and possibilities for how we walk this path. It's not just a black or white. It's not just that, oh, you wear your robe like this, or you shave your eyebrows or you don't, or you meditate like this, or you go to this place or that place. It's just not about that. It's open. And it's primarily about generosity, doing good deeds, with mindfulness, with detachment, helping each other, helping others, having long-form, engaged, intimate, intense discussions about helping with mindfulness and detachment. That's the kind of meditation retreat I'm interested in. Okay, and that's what the kind of meditation retreat that Sayadaw Tamasara does as well, in general. But we can do all kinds of different meditation retreats. I've been thinking about that recently. You know, it would be nice to lead one. But we'll see. It will happen naturally. Okay, questions? Questions from our dear community. And if you want to be a Capia or be a part of the Capia team, just send me a message on Discord or wherever, and I'll add you to the group. And yeah, I'll be talking more with the Capia group in the future about how we can organize and how we can manage for these things. I don't have any need for money because I'm not a stockbroker, so I don't have any need to ask for money. I'm not making investments. I'm not investing in crypto, so I don't have any need for money. But planes, trains, and automobiles, the monk pass usually doesn't work on that. So what is freedom? What is a potato? It's a mental object. It's a thought that you have in your mind, primarily. Your idea of freedom is explicitly not freedom. That's freedom. Or it's a little bit more free than being fixated on a mental object and thinking that has something to do with freedom. And most people, many people, they don't have much responsibility, and they don't understand the seriousness of the situation. So they speak flippantly and inappropriately, and that's okay. But usually it's not that helpful by itself. And we should try to do things that are more helpful by themselves. And then other people can more easily work together with those things, right? Because in cooperating with one another, we don't want to be putting like this black and white there. Like, you need to do this so I can do that. We don't want that. That's not generosity. That's like a trick or a scheme, right? And generosity is more related to freedom, right? The freedom of giving, the opportunity to help. That's non-conditional, that's non-transactional, that there's no strings attached, like it's up to you what you want to do. There's no tricks in it. Well, no, there's no well. And you get a lot of stress, you get a lot of anxiety when you try to do like that. You know, when you try to, you know, make a trick or make a scheme so that you can get what you want. Don't do that. Just give. If you give a lot, you will get back a lot. If you give everything that you have, then you will get back everything that you need. See, look. Even this cat knew what I was talking about. Oh, lucky me. See, and people say I'm not a good monk. How could this have happened otherwise? This is the kind of manifest destiny that I support. I don't support the manifest destiny of the colonial. I'm not a George Washington supporter, okay? I don't support George Washington, and I don't support Benjamin Franklin or any of those people. I don't believe in them, okay? Okay, any other questions, comments, complaints? Do monks have a better idea about the real cause of karma than most Buddhists? No. You will have a more practical idea of the cause and effect when you are less involved in a lot of complicated things. Okay? And if you become very skillful to not be trapped or attached or stuck in the idea about complicated things, then you can be deeply aware even in the midst of complicated things. But firstly, we have to let go of those complicated things because our involvement with them is so entangled. So then you become more aware of the this is because of that in your moment by moment or general experience. But the subtleties of karma, like the real specifics of karma, of cause and effect, are only understood by an arahant. So Buddhism is not about understanding karma intellectually. It's about believing in cause and effect and then taking responsibility for the causes and the actions that you do, so that you can change the effect or plant the seeds so that the effects that you'll be experiencing are more conducive to detachment, more conducive to recognition of the Four Noble Truths and understanding of the three marks of reality. Okay, so the marks of impermanence, no self or interbeing, and the mark of dukkha. All right, so this fan, whatever it is marked by dukkha. If I eat it, if I wear it on my head, whatever I do with this, it's not going to be satisfactory. You see? No matter what I do with this, it's not going to be satisfactory, ultimately. And it is also not, it doesn't exist separately from like all the fibers, all the fabrics, all the works, all the cause and effect that went into this being here right now, and me holding it, is together. This doesn't have a separation from everything. It's impossible for anything to be separate from everything. Even everything is not something already, because there's no separation in it. And then finally, it's impermanent. It's temporary. So every sensation, every thought, every self-experience, every story of your life is like that. And it's already like that. So there is no like existential breakdown about it, because it's already like that. Your thinking about that, or what you think is a recognition of that, is just another thought, just another idea, because it is already like that. What are the clouds? The clouds are the ocean of the sky. The clouds and this inter-are. It looks like a painting right now, huh? Look at that. Interbeing, inter-are. No separate self-entity already. So there's nothing to have a breakdown about or like existential about. You may notice that the things that you've been doing in your life, or the people that you've been, being in relationship with in your life, are not as savory or ideal as you imagine them to be. And so you may change the way that you're living your life. You may have to deal with some things, but you already have to deal with some things. And the joy here is that we're a community. We're planting seeds for a new community. It's time to wake up. Joe Riley. Highly recommend Joe Riley. Highly recommend Joe Riley. Very cool dude. And we can take refuge in the community for the long term, not in an interpersonal relationship. We can take refuge in the Sangha. All right? And it's not idealism. It's not going to fairy tale land, but it is taking refuge in the Sangha. But we've got to show up and put in the work. All kinds of work, all kinds of different work, using all of our own personal and creative sides. And it takes this inspiration of generosity, this inspiration of seriousness, to root out that greed, that anger, that delusion, that nonsensicalness that leads us to be complacent rather than content in a life that is not particularly meaningful. Now, if we're content in a life that is particularly meaningful, well, then don't worry about it. Don't be confused about it. It's not a this or that. It's like you see a homeless person on the street and you have $5 in one pocket and $10 in the other pocket. Then you pass out and you wake up and that homeless person is gone. It doesn't matter. $5, $10 doesn't matter. You just help. And you do that in this moment. Should I listen to this Dhamma talk or that Dhamma talk? Should I go here or should I go there? You find out through experimentation and through a mindset that is geared towards and has reverence for generosity and mindfulness and being a good person. And then you walk with that. And yes, know how to leave. Because actually I have a friend, a bit of a friend, who's like a specialist in herbal medicines, like a Chinese medicines and things like that. And recently, well, I'll have to go to little baby on this one. It's bigger than black and white. It's a problem with the whole way of life. So it's bigger than this or that. The problem is bigger than this or that. The problem is with this constant differentiation, this constant picking and choosing. That's what we need to kind of root out and let go of. And we can't change overnight. It's a path. We can't change overnight in that sense that you would like to, in that like the me becomes a super me, right? That doesn't happen overnight. Because that me is changing all the time already. And so what is it changing in? What is that change concerned with, and what is that change affiliated with? The Buddha, the Dhamma, the Sangha, generosity, 5 precepts, mindfulness, Dhamma teachers, Thich Nhat Hanh, Ajahn Brahm. Okay, if it works, Bhante Varapanyo. If it works, if it doesn't, you keep looking. Okay, this is what I see. You see, we develop this relationship with a kind of non-conditional peacefulness. And it's natural to feel this kind of relief and satisfaction in this non-conditional peacefulness. Now, are we arahants? Are we completely enlightened? Are we, triathletes or something like that? Maybe not, but we don't need to be to develop this affiliation and then to have reverence for this way of being, you see? And then instead of just chasing after In-N-Out cheeseburgers, we can chase after not chasing and then just put down. And we can develop our relationship with that in our life. Everybody wants to fly into New York City and go to their high-rise penthouse. Well, why do you need to do that? Why can't you just, not even to enjoy, not even to just, even before just, the space before just. The space before just is not even space. And dear friends, we are on YouTube, so don't forget to smash that like button, leave a like, leave a comment, W's in the chat, share the live stream, whatever. I don't care. But it's wonderful to share the Dhamma and to let people know about this. Hello, Jonathan. Yeah, thank you. Jiu-Jitsu hotline. There's a lot of parallels between Jiu-Jitsu and Buddhism. I was talking with a guy named Jiu-Jitsu Giant that I met during my teaching tour in Istanbul, Turkey. I did some teaching at a yoga studio in Istanbul, Turkey. And I was telling this guy, Jiu-Jitsu Giant, because he was calling me buddy. And I was like, yeah, Josh, you can come here. You can come here now. It's a little bit outside Bangkok. So he was calling me buddy, and because he's like a really big guy, I mean, he's like 6'5" and 250 pounds or 260 pounds. I mean, a lot bigger than me. And I was like, I don't like this guy calling me buddy. So what I said to him is that I sent him a message and I asked him if I could offer him some advice about generosity and things like that. And then I was telling him, because these kinds of people tend to have a very high value to competitiveness and like competitive skill. And I said, look, if we go into an MMA arena, we know what's going to happen. But what happens if you come into this arena? What happens if you come into the arena of mindfulness and detachment? And what really is more important? Is it the mind or the body? Because if your body breaks or falls apart, which is completely possible and completely normal, I mean, you can just go for a walk and trip and fall, and your entire life will change immediately and fundamentally, right? To where you won't be able to walk anymore or something like that. That's completely normal, completely possible. So if that happens, or if you wake up and can no longer move your body, but your mind is completely at peace, well, then you're completely at peace. And if you wake up tomorrow morning and you've become a super athlete, you got bit by Peter Parker's spider or something like that, and you're looking in the mirror, you're like, wow, but you're depressed and you're anxious, right? You're suffering, you're miserable. Well, then that's the way that your life is. So we have to develop a respect and a reverence for the arena of the mind, rather than hyperfixating on the body. The body looks like this, or the body feels like that, it feels pleasant or it feels painful. Those can be some good signs about what you're doing, right, and how things are going. But in general, the mind is more important. So what is it to enter into the arena of the mind? And how do we train to enter into the arena of the mind? Well, we train through generosity, not by establishing an idea in ourselves like, oh, I'm a generous person. Well, that doesn't matter, because generosity is a process. It's a systems change. Emphasizing dana, is emphasizing a systems change in the mind. The same with sila, the same with emphasizing mindfulness, the same with emphasizing the 5 precepts. You say, oh, I followed the 5 precepts. Well, what are you talking about? It's a system. And the more that we get involved with this systems change and support and propagate this system, the better our internal landscape will be, and the better the external landscape will be, for sure. No idealism, no grasping onto this concept of perfection, okay? The perfection that you'll find in Buddhism is no different than living inside of a toilet as the local football team runs through it, okay? How idealistic is that? So you learned that the shit of life, the shit inside of yourself, and the shit of the world is the processing point, the systems change point, the remembering point, not for feeling better, not for having more pleasant experiences, but for developing freedom through mindfulness and detachment. And doing good deeds, doing actions of generosity, donating, volunteering, whatever you want to do that's good and that's helpful and that's giving, sets up the framework for us to really recognize the preciousness of our human life, so that we can truly be mindful and truly detach from this chasing. More important to be on the path. Because when you get in deep water, there's only 2 options there. You will either drown, and then you'll get another chance later on, whatever, I don't know. What happens after you die? You'll have to give me a call. And then, or you get out of the water, you're not drowning anymore. And when we take refuge in the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha, we've got this buoyancy point that's going to help us a lot. It's just like taking refuge in the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha. You can call it a boat, right? But a lot of times you fall off the boat. So the boat is like the practice, the process to get to the other shore, to get to freedom. But when you fall off the boat, what does the boat become? When you fall off the boat and now you're drowning, it becomes a buoy, it becomes a buoyancy point. And then it's not about you riding on the boat to your destination, it's just knowing what to hold on to as you're drowning. Knowing what to hold on to keep your head above water. And then you say, wow, this boat is really important. Not only can this boat take me to the other shore, which requires a faith, but it can help me when I start to drown. I can rely on it when I start to drown. I can come back to it again and again and again. And it's wholesome and beneficial at the beginning, in the middle, and at the end, even though I go through difficulty. Even though I am susceptible to sickness, old age, and death, even though I am susceptible to drowning, I can rely on this. I don't need to be discouraged by the susceptibility of the body to decay, or to go through these intense mental states. It's okay. It's okay to go through intense experiences. They're temporary, for sure. Don't need to worry about it. It's not a big deal. Let's make no deal right? That's Bante's new work in LA, right? Start a TV show. Let's make no deal. There's no cases. There's nothing in the cases, and there's no cases. How about that? Let's hope you get the jackpot. So the suffering, if we can be with it, if we can just sit with it for a moment, in whatever way we can. We don't need to get rid of something to do it, but just to be with that suffering and to experience ourselves and to breathe with ourselves and say, to kind of offer to our own self, like, it's okay that I feel this way, that I can be with this, that I can transform this, and then I can be a better caretaker for myself. And that automatically helps you be a better caretaker for the people that you care about and for the people that you love. And the fact that it's difficult is okay, because you see at that moment, when you just stop for a moment and sit with yourself and breathe with yourself, even though it feels uncomfortable, you can be there, you can take care of it, you can breathe with it. And then you understand that the big disasters of life are okay. They don't need to control us. It's just something that happens, or something that happened, or something that will happen. We can look at it and say, okay, I'm ready to let go. I'm ready to try again. In whatever environment, whatever situation it is that may come about. I'm ready to forgive myself. I'm ready to forgive the environment. I'm ready to be patient with this suffering. You can say, fear, I see you. I'm not afraid of you. Fear, I see you. I am not afraid of you. And as you join for these sessions, be careful to turn within yourself. Be careful to turn within yourself. Be a lamp, be a light unto yourself. So whatever it is that you see in Bhante, whatever it is that you see in me, turn the mind around and experience that within yourself, especially at those moments. Not to dwell, not to fixate. I will do my best, but you also have to do your best to brighten the lamp within yourself at moments like this. And don't set up these expectations, because it's not for sure. By listening instead of thinking. By breathing instead of figuring out. By resolving instead of complicating. by empowering your resolve to try to listen, not to try and think. Listen to the everything that is not everything already. It's very precious, it's very subtle, it's very sensitive. So we learn how to restrain our senses and restrain our mind to come into ourselves. Yeah, I watched Donald Trump's talk. You know, it's politics. That's what it is. So it's not about Donald Trump. You know, Donald Trump is not the boogeyman that we think that he is. Our systems that are in place are the boogeyman. Donald Trump is just a part of that system, if you want to call it that. A part of that system that is antagonistic, but it's not about Donald Trump. Oh, I'm sorry about the wind. No, I have a microphone around here. Next time we'll try. We'll try for the microphone next time. But I have one now. Here, let's see. Let's do a test because, you know, this is what it's for. So let's go and get it. Okay, it's my joy for you to be here with me. Let's see about microphone with a windscreen. You can see Siara, and then this is his number one disciple in Thailand. This is the Siale, and this is the man who helped the temple. Many people like that because they live at the temple and then they doing helping. Okay, okay. Sabay, 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 sabay. Sabay, sabay. They have a lot of strong feeling about the monks, so they try to get up. Titi, titi, sabay, 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 sabay. Udo, 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 udo.
Riêu phải nhanh mà hỏi thằng riêu phải nhanh.
How about your English? You can? Just a little bit. How about you? Can you speak English a little bit? Children baze,
Wala din siya lagi.
angka baze, mira wanda bale, mira wanda bale. You can see this is the altar because the Buddhist people, they revere the monks, not because they are a god or something like that, but because they representing the freedom and the enlightenment. So it's a very different cultural and social system. Okay, let's see if this works. How about it? Does it work? Does it sound more clear now? This is our nature center. This used to be like the home of one of the princesses, a Thai princess. Was one of their estates. Now we use. Okay, great, Jonathan. And this here we can see like a altar room. Outside altar teaching room. Now you can see even for this situation, because you watch through the camera and you hear the sounds, and then Bante, he seems peaceful and all those kind of things. So this idealism comes up. But if you're at a place like this, well, it can be very, very hot. It can be 95 degrees or something like that, and it's not like there's just AC everywhere. And then there can also be mosquito. There can be all these things. So that idealism, we really root out that idealism by putting ourselves on the ground, bodies on the ground, and then you don't, these idealistic perspectives and notions kind of fade away, because you're like, whoa, it's hot, it's uncomfortable, right? And that is the real nature of the body. And so the American society and all that, what you see and what you experience for how people live their lives, is kind of trying to avoid that or get around that in some way. But it really is like that. It's dukkha. It's difficult. And it just goes on and on and on and on, and that's what it takes. This kind of limitless practice, this continuous practice that just goes on and on and on and on. And that somehow when we experience the intensity of that and the unpleasantness of that, it gives us this key into freedom. And it gives us this key into less easiness to fall into believability about shallow perceptions or notions about the way that things are, because we've experienced the unsatisfactoriness. And you can embrace the dukkha right now, but it's already that way. Even if you feel pleasure or you feel pleasantness, it's still ultimately unsatisfactory. So the master does speak English, but it's a weird thing, right? Because he's responsible for thousands and thousands of people's lives every day. And so where he goes and what he does, it has to be practical. It's not like he's, kind of like me, where my responsibility for people is more as a Dhamma teacher and as a Kalyanamitta and as a reminder, right? As a general guide, as like a waypoint. because he's taking care of the basic needs of thousands and thousands and thousands of people. You see, so what he does and where he goes and what he has to give priority to is very different from someone like me. And what that means is that he hasn't had, certainly as much as I would like, opportunity for him to teach in English and to develop the training methodologies for the Western people. Because in general, in the West, we don't have a spiritual society. We don't have a society that values like spiritual people in general. Okay, I know our community is a little bit different than that. But I think as time goes by, more people will become aware of me, and through that, become aware of this tradition, become aware of Sayadaw, become aware of our work, and then there will be more and more opportunities for him to teach in English and develop centers in America, which is, we're coming to America for 3 weeks right now. We're hoping to develop a new meditation center there. We're going to be looking at property, going to be looking at land, and we're always doing like that. And that's kind of where he can go. He can go to the places where there's an invitation, where resources are being offered, because he's responsible for so many people. And I also carry that in me as well, but to a much, much less extreme degree than he has to, because of how much responsibility he has. So, for like the meditation practice, fixation on meditation practice, it's kind of a special case. It is a good activity for us to do, and we can do it as much as we like. We can try, but in general, for me, I feel that there's a slipping into the alreadiness of wholesomeness. There's a kind of natural flow into awareness that's wholesome and that's not self-centered. And I feel like that is a more primary practice right now for our community. Research and then like that. And it's a good approach as well in how we do meditation. Because if we approach meditation with this tension and like this tightness, this time for me to meditate, it's very unlikely that we may stress ourselves out or get ourselves binded up unnecessarily. And also, if we try to listen to a Dhamma talk like that, you may not be as receptive to the teachings that are in that. So this opening to listening to the Dhamma, this opening to just being the way that you are, this opening to just going for a walk and the breathing is there, I think is a better approach. And you can approach that as much as you like. But this rigid idea, like let's sit and meditate, that's usually a special case. I think it's not something that will be reliable most of the time. It's good to do, you can do it, but I like this opening into beingness or walkingness or breathingness. And then listening to Dhamma talks, from people like Ajahn Brahm, from people like Thich Nhat Hanh, you listening to my Dhamma talks if you want. It's more like it's a way flow. It's a flow of the way. It's not like, okay, now it's time for me to get into training. It's an opening up to that which is wholesome and that which is concerned with the path, the path to ending suffering. Rather than what we do, fixating on what we do, a lot of the path is what we don't do, what we're willing to not do. And for me, that willingness to not do has to come from this place of open to the flow, open to the way. That's not about drinking alcohol or what have you, but just life is here already. Why do I need to do something to make life more here than it already is? And then anything to do, like go for a walk or listen to a Dhamma talk, it's just like a flowing way. It's not me, okay, it's time for me to do this. That's, that gives me anxiety even thinking about it, but just opening into the way. So let's spend our last few moments together, opening to the way as a community. Everything, not just something. No something to take over, just everything. Everything that is already not everything, not something. Everything, everything. No talking, no thinking, no stories, no people, no places, no techniques, just everything. Widening out, brightening out, shining out, beyond any limitation, beyond any grasping, even not grasping, grasping or not grasping itself. Everything. Pay back the debt of something with everything. Offer out everything. Forgive, forgive. Offer and receive all at once. Beyond offering or receiving, beyond self and other, forgive. May we be free. May we be free. May we be free. Sadhu. 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 Thank you and welcome, dear Sangha. See you again soon.